Okay, let's see. Right. Hello and welcome to session 2 of Automation and Integration, hosted by Significans. Now let's see who we've got on the call today. If you're just joining us, please jump in the chat and let us know where you're from and where you're joining us from. Don't be shy. Jump in the chat, say hello. Craig Powell from PrintIQ, Trevor Cox from the UK. Welcome, gentlemen. 2 MIS powerhouses straight away joining us on the call today. Fantastic. Paul McCarthy. Paul, brilliant. Social media legend from Toronto. Let's see, who else have we got? Anyone not software related so far? Okay, yeah, we can't wait either, Paul. We've got an absolute cracker for you today. Got a very special guest. A couple more minutes. The room's just filling up. As you're joining, please just jump in, share where you're from. Any other interesting points you'd like to pop in the chat, please do. And we're going to encourage the use of the chat throughout today's session. It is, as you've seen, labeled a seminar, which means it's a conversation piece. We would really like to have your input. Really like to hear what you've got to say. Really be part of something, really ask the questions, really get something out of today. Tony, thank you so much for joining us. Another one from Vancouver, Canada. Commercial printer. That's exactly who we want on the call today. Harrison Bailey. Hello, Harrison. Right then, so I think we're nicely warmed up. I'm going to jump in. So as I mentioned, hey, Greg. Quick hello to Greg McClintock. Hello, Greg. Nice to see you. So as I mentioned earlier on when we started the session, this is a seminar. Please jump into the chat. Please share any thoughts you have on what our panel is discussing. Maybe ask some questions of them or what you'd like to be covered. We will do our best to get back to everyone within the session. And if we don't, we will follow up post-session. So it's definitely worth your while. But as I say, this is a seminar. Let's make it a discussion. So we're very lucky today to have 3 very strong automation and integration champions with us. First of all, we have Kirk Lewis from HP, Marc Raad, who is the president and host of Significans Automation and this session, and this series of sessions, I must add. And then our VIP guest, Josh Russell from CBiPrint. I'm just going to let each of them just say a quick hello and give a quick helicopter view of what they do for each of their respective businesses. Kirk, let's start with you.
Sure. Thank you, Chris. Real pleasure to be here, everyone. Nice, as always, to chat with some familiar faces and friends, and good to see we've got a good audience out there. As Chris mentioned, my name's Kirk Lewis. I have the distinct pleasure of leading our go-to-market organization for sales for our PrintOS and software inside of industrial print. I've been around the HP world for about better part of 14 years now, and the graphic arts better part of 25, though hopefully my age is not showing through the camera. But real pleasure to talk today, and some great customers we have in Josh and partners like Marc. So looking forward to the chat. Thanks.
Excellent. And our host, Marc Raad.
Pleasure to be here, Chris and Josh and Kirk. Thank you. And to all those who are joining us around the world, we also appreciate your participation here this morning. Thank you. Marc Raad here from Significants Automation. We're an integration company, actually have become one of the largest in the Americas, thanks to a lot of your participation with us. Founded the company in 2018, and it was really on the context that there was a lot of software coming into our space, and something needed to happen with all that software, and it all has to do with ROI. So we'll talk about that a little bit further.
Our VIP guest, Josh Russell. You're the managing partner at CBiPrint.
Thank you for the invite. I'm Josh Russell with CBiPrint. We've been in business since 1995, and since probably about 2020, we made a shift to print on demand. It's that's kind of what we're really focusing on right now, is print on demand and automation.
Excellent. Thank you, Josh. And I'm your host today, as in your compere. I've been given the pleasure and the duty to chair this session, and it's an absolute honor to have these 3 very informed and experienced individuals. Hopefully you'll get something out of the session. My name's Chris, and I'm the founder of Digital Inc. So let's move straight into HP. If you haven't heard of HP, then you shouldn't be on this call. That's first and foremost. Kirk, fantastic again for joining us. Do you want to, first of all, go into a bit more detail into the relationship of what you do for HP, how it benefits the print industry, and obviously a bit more into the products and services that you offer?
Yeah, for sure. So again, on the software side of the fence for HP, for industrial print, really working towards bringing to market a handful of tools and toolkits, I guess, that helps our print service providers automate their business, connect with various systems inside their facilities, whether that's internal or external systems, and really help automate their factories as much as humanly possible. We've been at it for a better part of 10 years in PrintOS, having a birthday this year, believe it or not. 2016 in Drupa is when we launched this crazy idea
Happy
of
birthday.
having a cloud-based platform and a bunch of tools up there for customers to take advantage of. But if you jump to that slide that I sent you over there, Chris, really, we've been at this for quite some time and really have been able to help our customers kind of in three separate pillars, helping them grow their business and a handful of tools and toolkits over there that help them do that, helping them automate that business that's coming in the front door to get it out the back door as quickly and as seamlessly as possible, and then getting a bunch of telemetry data from those devices that have HP logos on them and from other devices as well to help control that business inside of there. And like I said, doing this over the past better part of 10 years. And while we have a handful of point solutions in each one of these buckets, the real beauty is the integration between all of these. And each one of these having APIs to be able to allow interconnectivity, to be able to extend the functionality of the software and allow customers like Josh and partners like Marc and Significans take those APIs and help increase the functionality and add the secret sauce inside of them to help them do what they've got to do based upon the intricacies of the business inside of there. So really excited about developing this platform, developing the products on side of it. And of course, the next evolution of all of this is the AI of everything, which we'll talk a little bit more, I'm sure, later on and during this chat as well. But really excited to be able to kind of peel back the onion here in the next hour or so on all the different tools we have and how customers like Josh and are using them.
Thanks, Kirk. That's really informative. I really appreciate that. On to our host, Marc Raad. Obviously, you've got a plethora of tools and services and people and different things and experience even and ROIs and case studies. Let's jump into the overall. Let's go right back to the beginning. What do you do and why Significans?
Well, thank you, Chris. Well, we're having our anniversary party here too, Kirk. We're 8 years in business. And really the context was that, again, you're bringing some formidable software into the industry. And what was acutely evident from our start and our business plan writing was that there was a lot of software coming in and everyone needs to build their own ecosystem. If it's not customized, it's not yours at the end of the day. And we also felt that to achieve the highest levels of automation, you can't get there without integration. And so that was really the context to why we founded the company, why we flourish in the industry today. We flourish also because we address both print, pack, agency, and brand, just like what Kirk's platform does. And so we see the benefits to addressing more than one aspect of the industry. And more importantly, addressing it as customized as possible. We have the experience with the team to create all those integration points for varied businesses in our sector. We have become experts in automation, integration, communication, management thereof. We provide training services, all the professional services to make companies like CBiPrint a very formidable and more elite business in their sector and of course the customers that they service. We've also started writing our own little apps to fill in the gaps of the most prominent and foundational software solutions in the space. You might want to move to the next slide. And so in summary, our services are the following. We do business integration, and that is core to our deployments. We do custom development of automation schemas, AI builds, AI strategies, and then, of course, a lot around software and software build services. Next slide. And then our reach, we service all of Canada, US, and parts of Europe right now. So we're excited that our services are extending beyond the Americas. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Marc. That's fantastic. And I'm always impressed with what you guys offer, the volume you offer, and the return on investment you bring. So, and you mentioned apps on one of those slides, and there was a great session with the InFocus App Store that you mentioned recently, which I think is worth checking out. Speaking of things to check out, there's a QR code on the screen if you'd like to find out more about some of the resources that you can download for an automation journey. Scan the QR code, and there's a ton of really useful case studies, white papers on there. Okay, so the VIP guest, he's had a huge introduction. We are obviously all really excited to have him with us. Josh, I think, first of all, let's go back to the original question we introduced you. Let's talk about sort of CBiPrint, what you do, why it's different, and maybe just give us a bit more of an insight into where you think the trigger came from for the decision to invest in software and ultimately having the conversations with people like Kirk and Marc.
Okay. Yeah. Journey with automations probably started in 2020. was right around COVID when COVID hit. And I think that's really the push for a lot of print shops that really started seeing the need for having to look at something different. Before then, we were a commercial print shop, and we were at the max able to process 200 to 300 orders a day. After COVID, we started looking at the possibilities with automation and really got connected with SiteFlow during that time. And what brought us to SiteFlow was we were an Indigo user. We got involved in DScoop and really got introduced to SiteFlow. And with SiteFlow, it really opened up the possibilities of to really kind of think outside the box and what was capable and what was possible with the automation. Ever since then, that's really what we've focused on.
Okay, so what was the thinking in the ecosystem in terms of like practical terms for your team? And what was the change in mindset? I know you obviously mentioned SiteFlow there, but was there something in the business that drove you to really change the way you thought about approaching investing in software rather than just hardware?
Yes, after SciFo, we went from being able to process 100 orders a day to thousands of orders a day, and so we saw the the possibilities of software investment, and that's when we changed our MIS recently to PrintIQ, which with PrintIQ it has a very advanced API possibilities. And
Mhm.
I'm not a programmer. And so I reached out to found that Significance, and the Significance, what they can do is they can take all this software, whether it be using SiteFlow, PrintIQ, and that's the whole power behind automation is building an internal ecosystem where everything kind of communicates together. And that's our overall goal is to try to connect everything.
In your mind, what are you guys trying to build? What's the objective?
We're trying to efficiency. Equipment's super expensive. Software is very expensive, and so what we're trying to do is maximize the software output and the hardware, where we get the most out of the presses, we get the most out of the equipment, and there's only a certain amount of time in a day that you can get things done, and so that's what we're really trying to do is just trying to really maximize the efficiency in the process of how an order comes in and goes through the shop. That's our overall objective.
Okay, fantastic. And before I bring Marc in for a question, I just wanted to sort of see, what does the current state look like before the automation push? Let's say, let's go back 18 months or a pivotal point in your journey. What's the difference? Is there a kind of a number or a number of, in production or errors, or is there something that you can say, hey, we've really got this right, we're seeing X?
As far as the push for automation, there are
Yeah, I guess in your mind, in plain English, do you see something that you can say, Dan, I'm really glad that took this journey, took this approach. It's having the following effect for you as a management and leader.
yeah, I would say when I'm not having to have as hands-on approach to things where um, our personnel can look at the system, have the data and have the answers that they're needing, and they can process the order and get all the information in real time. I think that's what we're really going after right now.
Fantastic. And I guess this one's to Marc, really. Someone like Josh, gets in touch with you and wants to lay out a roadmap and get some kind of plan. Where do you start with documenting that process? How do you bring that sort of professional service to the forefront and lay out that roadmap in a way that's going to be sustainable and good for all parties?
You can't do it without a plan, actually. And I actually have been reading some of the comments, the really nice compliments that you're receiving, Josh, here in the chat. And Laura reached out and said, you guys are the most forward-thinking group, sort of thing. So it all started with a plan, and to become forward thinkers, you draw up the plan, and we were there as their coach, actually, to say, hey, what does the current state look like? And so we drew up the maps around the current state, validated it, aligned on what current state was, and then started drawing up the future state and breaking that down into phases. And we did
Hmm.
that. We circled the wagons internally to suggest what is the best route for CBI? What have we seen that works best for them? Where can we apply the most magic? Where can they receive the huge return on investment? Because along the way, they've made software investments, which aren't cheap, especially if they're underutilized. But when they get utilized and they're extracting a huge value out of that software, no one has problems making those investments. And that's what Josh and Jason, his brother, did so well. They went out and bought the right ingredients. And then they commissioned us to put it all together for them. And they're really going to extract huge ROIs in the years to come from their forward thinking. So again, compliments Laura on recognizing that of CBI.
Fantastic. And I think that leads me nicely onto the subject of peak season. Anyone in the print industry is just off the back of recovering from peak season. Josh and Marc, really kind of an open question here. What did you reassess after peak season in 2025? What changed in the roadmap, or were there any changes in priorities? And did the Significans have to rescope, for example? What was the knock-on effect of those results?
Josh, you want me to start?
Yeah, you can go first.
Yeah. So we're constantly doing rescoping, new discoveries, because again, businesses are very dynamic entities, and the ecosystem always needs refinement. And again, anything that lives in the ecosystem, whether it's living or it's not living, and in this case, it's not living, but it's all interacting, always needs the refinements. So we did rescope recently based upon what Josh and Jason have realized to be a little bit more efficient. They're the boots in the ground and on the scene, obviously. So yes, there is rescoping, but I will suggest before I hand the mic back to Josh that to get anywhere past like a thousand jobs a day, you can't do it without any level of automation. And you need to withdraw from mundane tasks as a manual or a conventional business that do without automation. So they recognize that, and they put the pedal to the metal to say, we need automation. And not only that, we need automation that will hit strides beyond the 5,000 and 10,000 jobs a day. And so we're building those capacities into their workflows and into their ecosystem. And then of course, where Kirk comes in is that, from a digital standpoint with high volume, short run jobs, the platform is already ready for it. So it's quite intuitive. And again, Josh and Jason have made the right investments along the way. So we congratulate them for that.
Josh, you want to add anything to that?
You want to add to that? Sorry.
Sure. Yeah, after peak, there's three things that we normally look for. We look at the hardware if it's a hardware issue as far as capacity. We look at manpower if it's a manpower issue, and then we look at the software and the workflow, and then we see kind of where the break is. If it's a workflow that needs to be adjusted, and then we also look at personnel. Do we have enough personnel on the floor during peak? And every peak has its challenges. Even though you think you go on prepared, sometimes you find out you're not as prepared as you thought you were. There's always rooms for improvements, and we always find when you put that much, when you go to almost triple the volume you normally do, you find your weak points. And so it's really a good way that we use for peak is to find ways to improve, ways to get better. And then every peak just improves. But it also goes and helps us make decisions on how to improve for the rest of the year, starting in January to November when peak starts.
Excellent. I think just going to jump in the chat real quick. Paul makes a good point. No matter how much planning we do, there's always a gotcha moment. And can you share for the benefit of the others? So I guess he's asking there, has there been anything that you couldn't plan, didn't foresee coming that you may want to share? You may not want to share, I don't know, but that's an interesting question.
No, I'll share it. It's the advantages of having a flexible workflow. Say, for instance, a presses can go down. We have one B2 press. And so what automation gives us and what workflow software gives us is the ability to sit there and move that volume of work to a different press and spread it out in a pretty quick manner.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks as well, Marc, for jumping in there as well with your point of stakeholders. Do you want to voice that one out as well? Because I think there's some good value in that.
Paul from HP asked, who are the stakeholders required for a successful planning session? And I just answered that the stakeholders are the visionaries and the production staff who interact with every department of the business. After all, it's one customer that services their customer, or one supplier that services their customer. And so it is a holistic effect. And I think software and the software that gets developed into a very customized ecosystem ultimately removes those silos from being a barrier to success. And that's the why to our conversation here with Josh today.
Was it speed, capacity, errors, staffing pressure, turnaround, etc., or was it margin? And I guess what I'm asking you here is, what order mattered to you when you sat down prior to speaking to maybe even site flow, for example? Was it the margin, and did you work back, or was it speed or capacity?
Speed and capacity are always the probably the number one that we focus on, but they all tie in together. But the overall objective that drives all decisions is always speed and capacity. Because especially with print on demand is jobs need to be turned anywhere from 6 hours to 1 day to 2 days, and 2 days is usually the max. And so in a print shop environment, that doesn't really give a whole lot of margin for error. We have to know what's going on, and we have to be able to make decisions quick.
Fantastic, and that's really good to hear. Well, Marc and Kirk, where does the ROI show up first if in a print business for you guys as the software and the consultancy leaders? Is it labor waste, reprints, overtime, customer retention, capacity unlock? What do you get excited up, from your respective viewpoints?
Yeah, so there's a couple of areas. It really depends on where the customer is in their automation journey. But if I look at a kind of top level, there's kind of 2 buckets and 4 layers, if you will, for me anyway. There's these hard savings, or the immediate cost savings that you get, and then there's these soft savings, which typically get lumped into strategic growth kind of areas. So you've got the immediate wins on the hard savings would be things like waste, reprints, eliminating those or removing the amount of those in your business, where you can get some real cost savings there. And then you've got labor and overtime savings as well as a result of that. There are some real hard costs that the ROI of automation really starts to take hold and shows on the bottom line. And then coming on the strategic side, once you've solved inside of there, you've got that capacity unlock that Josh just spoke about, right? And if you've got that capacity unlock where you've got more capacity with the same amount of stuff, then what you've also got the ability to deliver on your promise to your customers, and you have customer retention occurring there, and also lower customer acquisition costs and your ability to go out there and grab net new customers and net new markets. So you've got the hard savings and you've got the soft savings, and then you've got those kind of layers underneath of there that allow your ROI to shine. And again, depending on where you are in this journey, kind of depends on what you might see first. But that's kind of the 4 steps to kind of keep it simple that I talk to customers about things that they can expect from an ROI. Of course, in order to have an ROI, you got to be able to measure these things too. And in order to measure them, you've got to have data. And that's the nice thing about, I think, the platform that we've got 10 years of data now in PrintOS and a whole bunch of applications inside of there, and great partners like Marc and the team to be able to spin that data in areas and ways that if we don't have it in our platform, you can get access to that too. So lots of good tools and things, but that's the kind of 4 buckets that I typically talk about high level from an ROI perspective.
Couldn't agree more. And really for us, it all boils down to time recovery. And it's all about the time and reducing the errors, reducing the touch points. So there's multiple layers, as you've suggested. There's no one bucket. It's a holistic bucket. More importantly, when we do our discovery and our formal assessment process, we go through an ROI study. And what we evaluate is, what is the TAT, which is the total turnaround time of a job throughout the entire business, not just the department or series of departments. It's the holistic, from input to shipping. What are we looking at in terms of the total turnaround time, and what is typical? What could be modernized? Where could we bring more efficiencies to the business? So we do those studies, and of course we have to involve the customer in those studies, which is exactly what we did with Josh and Jason a few months ago. At the end of the day, the ROI is what the customer realizes to be their biggest win. It's not one area, it's several areas ultimately. And have they made a go of the software? Because again, if they haven't made a go of the software, then they're saying we had no ROI. But to get the real intangible, as you've suggested, It's saying, wow, we can't live without that software. We can't live without that service. We can't live without that platform. And therefore, companies like CBI will say, bring it on. Let me have more of this software because software is going to drive everything in our business.
Can I add
Mark,
something
Kirk,
to that, Chris?
I'd just like to say real quickly, we'll ask you both, what does 90 days look like in terms of success? What does it look like in your eyes, respectively?
Yeah, I was going to add to the ROI.
Yeah.
Without the software and in place, it's really hard to know what improvements need to be made. So if you're constantly doing reprints based on, say, press quality issues or cutting errors or binder issues, if you don't have a way to track it and don't have a way to document it, it's really hard to know where to make changes, how to improve it going forward.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
it's the 101 of writing a business plan, right? You got to have some forecasts, you got to have some budgets in place, and if you exceed your expectations, then that's the real win. And I'm sorry, Chris, I know you had asked us, but what does the 90-day look like? Of course, in 90 days, the biggest win is getting a return on investment on the software. That's our quest because again, we're just a small cog in the wheel to a huge software push in our industry, but that is the biggest return on investment for companies like CBI. I don't know, Kirk or Josh, you might have something to add in that regard.
Yeah, it's again, I think it depends on where the customer is in their journey, but let's say we're going from kind of zero to hero. It's all about stability and visibility, I think, right? So first thing you want to be able to do is be able to have a stable automated process that reduces waste and reprints, that reduces error rates, that gives you real-time visibility into the data of what's occurring, so you can actually measure it and understand what's happening in your facility. No sense in implementing software if you don't know what the problem is. So first, in kind of getting your process stable, being able to visualize what that process is, and then having to be able to automate around that to be able to have success. It wouldn't necessarily be around massive strategic growth and revenue. It should be fixing the house in order to be able to prepare yourself, to give you a strong foundation to then catapult yourself strategically into the next area of that business. And I think that's what the collection of our companies and a lot of our partners that are on the call help bring that. So first 90 days, that's kind of what I would think to expect from a strong ROI.
Yeah, and I think it's really, really great that both yourself and Marc are saying that action in 90 days as well, because sometimes any software implementation can take a while, right? And the fact that you guys are moving quickly is only a good thing for our industry. So Laura makes a good point. She says buy-in from leadership is also key. Just like Marc said, having production staff buy in for the automation and not see it as a replacement for themselves. So leadership approach to bringing software automation, investing in software systems. Josh, unfortunately, I'm going to have to ask you about this one. Marc made a really valid point there. Surely there's a management style here as a business at the top that you're sort of embracing, where you're bringing the team on the journey. Is that the case? And have you had any pushback from anyone over the last couple of years on your journey?
Now, we're in a kind of a unique situation because CBiPrint is still a family-owned and operated print company. So what we do is me and my brother, we handle the leadership part, and we always kind of share the vision with our family. And once we do that, we also share the vision and lay the groundwork. And we have to change the internal culture of the company, and with the leadership staff, we have shop manager, we have team leads that we share the vision with and let them know what's going on, because they're ultimately the one that's going to have to carry out the vision we have. And so once they see the value, we share the value, we try to be as open and transparent as possible. But right now at this point, everyone sees the value of automation, sees the value of software. And so making those changes internally aren't as challenging as they could be.
Fantastic.
Josh, it's a very valid point. And just to use an anecdote that I usually talk to customers about is the idea of having turkeys voting for Thanksgiving. You typically wouldn't ask turkeys to vote for Thanksgiving because you'd probably know what the answer is. So you want to be able to have the buy-in and have them bring along on the journey, because they're the ones that'll make the implementation of this and this complete strategic transformation that a lot of the customers are going through that much easier and that much more successful, and having less bumps in the road. So I think, Josh, you've done it quite well and admirably, and obviously you're getting great success out of your style and buy-in from the team. So well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have to say as well, being part of some of the communities and seeing some of the conversations in the investment in the stack, as we call it in the software space, it's really refreshing, and the a conjoined approach, which is a nice segue onto a comment from Trevor, who's asking, I wonder who organized the cross-vendor collaboration. Was it Marc's team in the sense of was it significant? So they were not just providing expertise, but also project management, coordination of technology partners, things which otherwise a printer would have to do themselves, taking up time. Also, did you get full cooperation and or technical contact person from all the vendors? Now, I think this is a very important question because Josh has mentioned a couple of times that they position themselves as a print on demand. Any successful print on demand business has a successful stack of software partners that will all integrate and in essence automate. Thank you, Trevor. That's a fantastic question. I'm afraid, Josh, we're back to you again, sir. Let's dive into that one. How did that all come about? Please go into detail. We're very interested.
Okay. I probably want to start and say Kirk with SciFlow and Marc with Significance are offer very unique sets of services. A SciFlow is pretty much set up for its own print ecosystem internally. It handles almost everything from order entry to imposition to shipping. So where Marc and Significance comes in play is they help with, say, about 60 to 70% of our business right now is ran as print on demand through SciFlow. So what we're focusing on is really trying to improve the 40% that's manual commercial print orders that come in via email, RFQ sites, manual estimates. And the way we look at it is anything that is kind of a repetitive task, in my point of view, should be and could be automated. As far as there's a lot of questions in that. So I'm trying to.
There is. Yeah.
Yes.
You should go back a step if you like.
So we introduced with Marc, and Marc has he didn't really give us recommendations on software. He pretty much did a full analysis of kind of where we're at as a company and what we have, and he was able to kind of work with what we had. And then he got a plan, and a lot of the software we've talked to people. We've been to DScoop, we've been to Printing United. So we do a lot of networking. We talk to people and see what they're using. I try to avoid mistakes that have been made in the past. So I think the good thing to do with that is to talk to people that have made those mistakes and figure out kind of what drives what software they would recommend. And so we kind of developed our software stack. And I can mention that software that we use, Chris. I mean, if that you think that would be beneficial.
I think it would be. I think also that, the biggest point I think here really is this is a huge question. And I think as a slight outsider here, I would just like to add that this is something that most, if not all, print businesses need to be looking at and adopting is how they're going to build their stack, who should be in the stack, who's going to help them manage it. And obviously in this case, you've got Marc and the Kirk, as well supporting. So there's a huge skill set there. But I do think this is something that I hope printers will take away because the way the industry is going and business in general, software is going to be key. And I think there could be value in going through it all, and potentially we could have prepare some kind of resource off the back of this, maybe some kind of guide or whatever. But yeah, if you want to give us like a quick oversight, maybe in order, and then maybe why, that'd be I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, something we've had for a while is probably InFocus Switch. I think we are able to build a lot of the automation flow with InFocus Switch, and then we can tie in apps, tie in plugins, and it's really a powerful tool. And then we also added PrintIQ. PrintIQ has the ability to feed into Switch. And then we added Infigo Storefront, and that gives us the ability to do web portals, to give us the ability to add storefronts and whatever else we would like to do to it. And then what we did is, I'm probably missing something, but then we got with Marc, and I think we have Marc is Phoenix for our imposition tool.
That's correct.
And then all those we get with Marc because, like I said, I'm not a tech guy. I can tell you what everything does, but I don't know how to make everything work. So we go with Marc and tell him what we have, and he kind of gives us a very detailed and laid out plan of basically walking through a job when it comes through the platform and how it processes through each workflow.
How did he do, Marc?
I certainly don't do without my team, Chris, and that you know. So we have a very formidable team here at Significance. But I think the context here, and it goes back to Trevor's comments here from Accura MIS, is all having to do with change management and how is that affecting the adaption or adoption of software, the newness of it all. And we see it everywhere we go actually today is there's sort of crossing the roads between, and I'm sorry to be impolite, but it's almost like job preservation versus business preservation. And so if you're not innovating, you're not Darwinian enough to obviously innovate. And I think that's what companies like CBiPrint, who adopted digital early in their business cycle, have said we got to embrace this more. We got to digitize our business. We got to move our data to become an extreme powerhouse in our business so that we're servicing our customers to a very modern, innovative state. And I think that's really the context here is that for those businesses, and we've mentioned the D-scoopers, and we've mentioned the HP client base who have acquired many, many Indigos and many large format devices throughout the years, they've had the foresight to say, my goodness, I'm thirsty for more. How do we do it, right? Where do we go? And we're grateful that Josh and Jason have had the confidence in us to help build that powerhouse to put, as I said before, the pedal to the metal and absorb more and create more and become a quote unquote smart entity for their corporate customers. And I think really that really addresses the question from Trevor and the others on the chat that have said, okay, what do we do around change management? Well, Josh and Jason said, there's no way about it. There's no two ways about it. We're not writing our business obituary. We're actually writing a business plan today that is going to be sustainable and allow us to grow. And they have the buy-in from their staff because they said we're part of this journey.
We all need boats to rise and scale. You asked a very, very interesting point now. What's the best way for us as an industry to provide the confidence every printer needs to discover and investigate workflow and automation solutions to tighten up their companies? He sees a huge gap with data that can be measured. Sorry for the long, big question, smiley face. No, thank you, Paul. And I think I'm glad you've asked this because I want to speak to Marc and Kirk on data as well. Josh, what's your thoughts first and foremost? What's the best way for the industry to provide confidence to every printer to discover, investigate workflows and automation solutions?
On our side, I've talked to a lot of printers on and about automation and workflow, and I don't mean to come across as hard, but you either want to do it or you don't, because it's always a risk, but it's a risk in business either way. Some people see the value in it and some people don't. So it's just a matter of how do you see when you write out a 5 or 10-year business plan, and based on the state of print, where do you see your company 5 to 10 years from now? And the thing is, with print automation is really kind of a very broad and vague term. But if you're not automating now, unfortunately, it is the future of print, of workflow management and how that looks. There's a lot of, it's, the thing is just partnering with people like Marc and Kirk because I don't know everything. I'll be the first one to say I can't know everything. I do know business. And I do know print. I've been in print my entire life. So I know how to put ink on paper. These people know how to make print more efficient and more effective.
Fantastic answer. Kirk and Marc, I think you guys have got to jump in on this one as well, especially on the data point.
Yeah, so on the data point, yeah, I mean, we need to be making sure that we have devices and systems that collect the data, can store the data securely, and that's kind of step one. Step two is doing something with it and making sure that, the left hand and the right hand, the supply and the demand, both sides are singing from the same songbook, if you will, and have a set of tools that can actually interpret that intelligently to not necessarily just be reactive, but more importantly, be proactive into what am I going to do next, and what kind of systems and tools is going to help me make sure that the next time I receive a job via email, via a website, via an API call, that it's actually intelligent enough that it can see my factory, and then through, the magic of software and integrations, can make sure that postcard, that book, that whatever it might be, goes to the right device on the right shift and out the door based upon the SLA intended for. And that's kind of nirvana. It's obviously what we're working on and building inside of the HP world inside of that. But it's very much about making sure that we have integrations and not isolation. And from our printers, having an automated solution is table stakes for business continuity in the future. And I'm not suggesting scare tactics about being, in business 5 years from now is what should drive you to automation. But if you're not thinking about it and don't have a plan to implement it and aren't talking about automation and AI, your competitors are, and they're out there doing that at spades and at scale because they're being asked for by their customers to deliver quicker, faster, as Josh mentioned, SLAs and peak seasons. So I think you've got to be looking at that just from a competitive standpoint and making sure that your systems are delivering data and you've got a plan to be able to have integrate inside of all of that. Companies like Marc are great at helping distill that. HP's got a great set of tools that we hand to integrators like Marc to be able to do that. And I think that's where we've got to get out there and talk to our customers about the ROI that we talked about, the systems and tools that are out there. Because I'll be honest with you, we talk to customers all day, every day about what's inside of our platforms. And a lot of our customers today are only scratching the surface of what they see is available. There's so much more there to do things with. And that's on our part as stewards of the industry, is to help educate our install base as to what they have access to today and what is possible to help make those informed decisions. So it's much about a part of the vendors, as well as having devices out there that can cough up that data and do something with it. So I think it's a shared Paul.
Yeah, and
Marc?
I would agree, Kirk, because really the narrative is data and logic, and that's how we get started. Especially when you have repositories of data in people's businesses today, whether that's a business system, an MIS system, an ERP, a CRM, that's all, but it just sits there. And if we can extract something out of it and trigger automation rules from that, then the customer wins. And those are the services we provide as we build workflow automation for our customer base. And those are the 90-day plus wins that the customers get to garner from. And that's the refinement that I talked earlier about, that we engage with customers and we think long term that way. But there was a question from Rob here on the chat that says, okay, but you can't eat the elephant in the room. Absolutely not. You have to create the quick wins. Otherwise, you're not going to get the adoption and the adaption in the environment. That is for sure. We always break down our massive transformational map into bite-sized phases. Do that for budgetary sakes. Too, we can't strangle or suffocate production from being offline, because again, sometimes we're doing this online for the customer and live for the customer. So we really look at every aspect of the business and say, okay, well, it's like a home. We're not going to renovate the entire home if the family's living in the home.
Right.
And the same thing goes to the business. We really need to renovate one floor at a time or one room at a time. And then you've got some really key wins that you're measuring too, because again, the purchase of ROI or the purchase of an expense like services from Significans, nothing comes cheap. Even if it was a dollar, it's still not cheap if it doesn't create a semblance of a win at the end of the day.
Fantastic point there, Marc. And I'm glad you made reference to Rob's elephant analogy: one bite at a time, start small, but plan to grow. And I think that's a great analogy for everyone to follow. Paul McCarthy acknowledges the answer, Josh, and appreciates that. So thank you for that, sir. And thank you as well, Kirk, for jumping on that point. I think it's very important that we share those experiences and mindsets as well. Okay, so let's just touch back on one of the questions here we have on peak. Josh, what's the one, let me just reread this. What's the one operational bottleneck you'd like to remove by the next peak period? 2026 peak period, but what would you like to remove, sir?
Bottlenecks are kind of tricky because sometimes they're there and sometimes they're not, and you really just got to figure out what the common denominator is. With our workflow, it's not usually a workflow issue. It's right now, and we got our workflow dialed in pretty tight. I would say it's a matter of a personnel or just the capacity that machines are able to process at the same time. There's always for instance, there's always a cutting bottleneck because everything that comes off the presses have to be cut. So some things we can change is switching some of that from a guillotine cut to say a rotary roll die machine. so they use it a little faster. And so those are some internal decisions we make as how to do that. They do require different impositions. So that's something that we can change in the workflow pretty easily by, if we do have a cutting bottleneck, we just change the way the imposition is, and it's the next batches come through using that rotary die imposition.
About how do you get 80% there and leave the 20% of the bowls to be more customized? And can we take it to 90, 92%, 95% to be addressed? And those are the elements that I think Josh is looking to do at the later half of this year or by the end of the year. Is how do we embrace as much machine learning combined with AI, combined with automation as possible? And I think, to use the term, nirvana is perfect in that case. That is the utopia for the business.
That's it, Mark. Josh, just from my point of view, and just purely out of interest, what's still manual right now?
The way we have a lot of email orders. We still have a lot of RFQ orders where it's bidding sites, and we have to manually download those orders into our system. Estimating is still very manual. But Mark mentioned AI. I know this isn't an AI, but eventually, once we get the ecosystem built out, we can always plug in AI bots to even make more automation possible with either estimating how things are routed, emails, response, and stuff like that. And so that's what we're going through. We don't want to have a complete hands-off touch from the customer, but a lot of our customers, we don't want waiting for hours to receive an email because we get so many emails. So we're really trying to really put the customer first and prioritize speed on how quick the customer can get a response from us.
Fantastic. We've got a question here actually, and it was originally aimed at Josh, but I think it's worth all three of you answering it. Where do you see the biggest misconceptions in the market about automation projects? Is it cost, complexity, or time to value? I think that is a fantastic question. I'd love to get your take on that. Josh, if you want to start first from a print business owner's perspective, what do you think are the biggest misconceptions about automation projects?
The biggest misconception is value, because it is going to cost money, but you can also stage it out as you grow. You don't have to automate 100% right off the bat. You can do it in stages. And I think the misconception is just knowing, I guess not really a misconception, but a lot of people don't know how to get started or what the first step is going to be. Do they need to invest in hardware, equipment? Do they need to invest in software? And so it's just a matter of knowing how to do it. And I always tell people, you don't know what you don't know. A lot of the thing is build a network around you of people that have done it, and just know how to ask the right questions. And I think that would help a lot.
Marc or Kirk, who wants to go next? You must have some crackers.
I was going to say, see Josh's answer. I mean, I think that was brilliant. I mean, what we hear from various events is exactly that. How to get started. What's a good project to get success? Think about something and celebrate the quick wins. As Rob said, don't eat the elephant in one bite. Small, crawl, walk, run. All of these kinds of lessons that we've learned over time is very applicable to implementing any sort of infrastructure change inside of a business. And that's kind of what automation is, infrastructure plan, right? So you've got to crawl, walk, run, and ask a lot of questions, ask a lot of people, and get some thoughts from where we should start. And if you think you've got a project, socialize that with your internal and external network and see if that's something we can jump in. I know Marc would give you a free webinar to have a review with it. So would myself and the team to say, hey, this makes a lot of sense. And we've done something similar with some other companies. So I think that's a great opportunity for us to say, yeah, that's something we can win at, get a quick win. And then from there, you'll see further. So, I mean, I think that's probably one of the misconceptions is the value, the cost, the speed, and also what's the right thing to make sure I'm successful at that so I can celebrate that win and get on to the next one. Marc?
I would say is that automation is truly a background process, if we really, really think about it. And so it's not a tangible process. It's not a process that you can actually really see. I mean, you see the result, but you don't see the steps going into it. So when we're at the shows along with you, Kirk, it's hard for us to demonstrate automation. What we do is say, okay, but if we press this button, which we've created into and coded into an easy button for you, Mr. Customer, then you press the button, you receive magic, right? And so it's it's hard for us to do it. I tell you, every demo that we do, it's almost like we scratch our head and say, well, what are we going to show the customer? Right? Because again, what we're going to use at the end of the day is their data, their process, re-engineer it, re-digitize it. And therefore we can't do canned demos, but we can do high level demos that are educational. And hopefully that peels back the onion layers to say, let's do a deeper dive on the business. At the same time, the customer is looking at what's going on and saying, boy, this is a bit of a self-revealing process.
Yeah.
And the lights go off, right? And the lights turn on and the lights go off and then the lights turn on again. And they go, I'm starting to see the magic. And ladies and gentlemen, what we're building is not magic. What we're building is with the tools that are apparent in our industry and beyond our industry. And what we're doing is creating something that is unique to every customer. And CBI is not the exception, or they're leading the pack here.
Fantastic answers from everybody. Marc, what are the practical getting started steps you recommend for a print operation that is overwhelmed and does not know where to begin? Where do they start?
Find somebody you trust. We try and build trust through every relationship we have, and hence the reason why Josh and Jason have engaged us. You build trust by educating them. You build trust by providing the experiences that you have. We have the privilege of doing business with 10 to 20 different businesses every month. So we see what works, what doesn't work, what software recipes are good and what are less adaptable and in environments like CBI. We know what works for print. We know what works for the agencies, which are all very, very different. And so taking a neutral approach, taking the emotion out is also very, very important. And understanding that at the end of the day, you're being helped by someone that has experience, then you're going to get.
Kirk, have you got anything you'd like to add to that? Or
No, just echoing what Marc was saying and Josh. I mean, believing in the journey that once you've set a course path, stick with it, stick on it. Results will come. You're partnering with teams that have, gone through these things a handful of times. And I think get a solid plan, socialize it, and then stick with it. And believe in the choice point, and results will come.
It's been a great session, and I'm sure there's many more questions we can ask the panel. Please do get in touch if you'd like to find out more.
While we're waiting for Paul's typing, I'd like to offer the audience something. Today we brought together a fantastic software OEM with an integrator and a customer. And there's something unique about this. And really, I think what's unique about this is the fact that there is experience that's being tabled, but there is also an education and hopefully comfort that's being provided here.
Yeah, thanks, Marc. And that's the whole point of this, really, is making this not such a daunting task and sharing the fact that the resources and the education are there. And hey, Josh, I'm sure you wouldn't mind people picking up the phone and having a chat with you and asking some questions to find out how you coped with different elements of the journeys.
No, not at all. Because if it wasn't for people helping me, I wouldn't be where we are today with automation.
Awesome. So Paul's put the question in. It's for you, Kirk. You know the types of calls and questions I have for you weekly and monthly. Off the top of your head, what do you call about the most would be benefit to the group? So I guess he's asking you which question he asks you on a regular basis would be most beneficial to the group.
So what Paul is all about and always asks from a software stack and our partners is about business growth and about strategic growth and revenue. And how do we make HP-enabled print service providers the easiest people on earth to do business with? And how can software help make that happen? And how can what we're doing achieve those types of goals? Getting things into the front door is the place where we have to start to make it easy to do business with. The rest of that is where the automation journey kind of kicks off and sticks into your factory. But really what Paul's all about is, Kirk, help me make my print service providers the easiest print service providers to do business with globally. And then from there comes the international opportunities. From there comes your international sales force, where you're doing work from brands across the pond looking to go into the US over to Europe and an APJ. But that's really what the questions come from, and looking at scenarios and doing that. That's where software, that's where automation, that's where APIs, that's where integrations, all of these things come where the rubber meets the road. And I think from the benefit for the teams out there is look at partners that allow you to enable that and be the easiest people out there to do work with. And if that is
Fantastic.
something you can achieve, then success is right on your doorstep.
Fantastic. Great last question, Paul. Appreciate that. Thank you, Kirk, for answering that. Okay, so just going to wish our thanks and gratitude to everyone that joined the session today. Again, we're really, really pleased that you could join and also contribute. It's really important that we have these seminars as active sessions. So thank you so much. Thank you to our wonderful panel. We also just like to remind you that you can download the latest resources from the Significans automation website. Just scan the QR code, and if you're watching it on the replay as well, it will work for you. And also, if you're looking for something in particular, get in touch. We'd very much be interested to speak to you. Okay, so I'm just going to let each of our guests just close out real quick with a short message. I'd just like to say it's been an absolute honor, Kirk and Marc and Josh. Thank you so much for all the questions and sharing the insights. Is there anything you'd like to say before we close the session?
Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, it's a pleasure being on this. It's always nice to, hopefully we can help other print shops make the next step to automation. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Thanks so much, everyone, for joining. Thanks so much to the esteemed panel for the opportunity to speak with such great individuals and companies. And thanks for the audience for the great questions out there as well. Always privileged to be part of the industry, and any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to us or my team. Happy to jump on a call and continue the discussion. Thank you.
And I'd second that as well, and suggest that we can't do this without people's intrigue and interests. And so for that, we're very, very grateful. We're always here to take a call. We're always here to learn more about what your concerns are and how you want to innovate and how maybe you just want to have a conversation. And so that's what this is all about. So thank you very much to everyone here on the panel. Chris, to moderate this. This is wonderful.
Thank you so much, everyone. The recording will be available shortly. We'll keep you abreast of future sessions as well. And we really appreciate your input. Thank you, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.